Matt Drago. What do you know about acting? I know very little. I know very, very little. But Matt is a world class actor. His latest movie, Somewhere in Montana, is wonderful. But I open the conversation with the relationship between director and actor. What makes a great one? He mentions the term an actor's director. I think I've heard that before, but I kind of asked him to dive deep in that. And I recently saw an interview with Gary Oldman, the great British actor, and he was talking about being on the set of one of the Batman movies with Christopher Nolan directing, and he just couldn't get a take right. And Christopher Nolan came up to him and just simply said, "It's more urgent," and walked away. And Gary Oldman said, "That's an excellent direction." And then, he was able to kind of grab onto that. But just that relationship and just being an actor, just auditions. What's interesting about Matt is that he's also a fourth degree black belt. He got his pilot license when he's 16 years old. So just a really, really aggressive, person. And the pilot is more, being a pilot is a bit more science and acting is an art. And it's just kind of marrying the two. But it's a really great conversation with Matt and trying to understand a world that I know very little about, but really, really enjoy. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission? How do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Drago, thank you so much for your time. Can you explain to me from a actor position the relationship between the actor and the director?
Oh, it's honestly one of the most intimate relationships there is in art, personally.
Hmm.
Because you see actors and directors work together over and over again. There's a reason for that. Because again, I mean, as an actor, you really are trying to serve the director, you're trying to serve the writer, you're trying to
Mm.
serve really the whole project. Like you're there in service of the collective art that you're making together. But I think specific to the director, because there are so many great actor directors out there. Obviously, I'm partial to my Francis Ford Coppola and my Martin Scorsese.
Mm.
But you really do. You hear so many stories of actors that are searching for kind of what collectively the story needs, right? And again, service to the story. So I really do. I go back to all of those conversations that I've heard through the years of Scorsese or Coppola trying to find what it is that they're both trying to find together. And I mean, I can speak to my relationship with Brandon Smith in Somewhere in Montana. I mean, we got on so many Zoom calls just like this, Joey, and we just went through scene by scene by scene by scene. And it was
Wow.
just such a really remarkable time in the process, because you don't always get that as an actor. But it was really special to me because we were really trying to find the character together. He wrote a lot of himself into the character of Fabian, and he wrote a lot of himself into the character of John, the two lead characters of the film. And when you get a director that really is trying to find it with you and has also written the script, there's really something
Hmm.
magical about it, because you really are just trying to kind of dive deep into what makes the character click. That way, when it's ready to shoot the thing, you guys are on the same page. And then again, I think that there's part of it where you're trying to articulate a plan of attack, but then you get both so into it that usually once you have executed that plan, you play. The next
Hmm.
couple takes, maybe you'll try something completely different, and maybe that'll make the cut. So it really just goes down to really the work, and it really goes down to the relationships, because like in life, in art, it's all about the relationships.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. You used the term, Matt, actor's director. What's an actor's director and what's a non-actor's director?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joey. I mean, honestly, I the way I look at it is there are some directors that are more technical centric in terms
Hmm.
of how they're, really focused on composing the shot. Maybe they don't necessarily come from an actor background, or maybe, they're just getting into it and they don't know how to articulate certain things to an actor. Like well, let me just pull one of the best. I mean, Marty, he is an actor's actor
Hmm.
director.
Hmm.
There was a talk back that I went to that because I go to a lot of SAG talkbacks, and it was Jonah Hill in the phone booth scene in Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
And Jonah is just having this moment where he's like really doubting himself. And again, it doesn't matter where you're at in the actor process. You can always have moments of insecurity, vulnerability, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself because again, you're serving the story, right? That's the
Hmm.
actor's job. And he's Jonah is in this phone booth and he really just feels like he doesn't have it, like he's missing something. I'm watching him speak, and I can see him reliving this experience because it mattered so much to him
Hmm.
to bring it all to the table. And Marty saw it, and he knew that he had cast the right guy for the right part, and he's been very vocal about that in the past. I mean, he's Marty for a reason. Like he blankets humility
Hmm.
in his process. He's been asked so many times about casting Bobby De Niro in a lot of his films, and he's like, "What are you talking about? He's Robert De Niro." You know what I
Oh.
mean? Like that's usually his response, even though he is an actor's director. But this moment really resonated with me because at that point, Jonah's like, he's gonna come over, he's gonna impart some incredible words of wisdom to me. Like he's just gonna he's gonna give me like the full treatment, try to get me back on track. Da 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 da. Marty just yells, he just looks at everybody. He's like, "We're gonna take a five, guys," and he walks off. And he goes to his director chair, and Jonah's just like still in the phone booth,
Hmm.
and he's like,
Hmm.
he's like burning it out, right? He's just still in it, but he's expecting Marty to come over to him, and Marty
Wow.
pulls out the paper, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Yankees are looking good this year."
Hmm.
He's just kind of like he's like reading the paper, just nothing. And again, he let Jonah Hill burn out that insecurity because he knew that he was already right. He knew he had it basically. He knew it was going to happen. He believed in the process, and after 5 minutes, he just closes the paper. All right, guys, we're back. Very, very like, and this is the way that Jonah Hill, and I was just like, God, that's brilliant because
Huh.
sometimes the art of direction is non-direction, is knowing when the actor's locked in, is knowing when you see it in their eyes and it's go time, right? And you could tell that all he needed to do was let him burn through any insecurity or
Hmm.
negative feelings that he was having, and he did. And after that 5 minutes, he settled. He literally, probably glanced up at him. He's like, "Yeah, he's ready." And he's like, "All right, action." And that's the take that they ended up using. And I'm like, that in a nutshell is a great example of what I
Hmm.
consider to be an actor's director.
I saw an interview recently with Gary Oldman, the great British actor, and he
Of
was
course.
talking about getting directed by Christopher Nolan in Batman, and he kept on doing this one scene, and then Nolan walked up to him and said, "It's more urgent,"
Hmm.
and then walked away.
That's it.
And Oldman said, "That's incredible direction. That's perfect direction." And so from those points after, that's all I needed from there. So I mean, to simplify it like that, I mean, when I hear things like that, I get chills. Like I would think the director was kind of yelling at people and over emphasizing things, but you just gave a direction, an example there, and certainly Nolan is a great director. Just simple instructions like that.
They know what to say, when to say it, how to say it.
Mm,
They are in tuned with the actor. And again, there's nothing wrong with a good technical director. And there are, few directors out there that obviously cover both. I mean, I say Marty is an actor's
mm,
director just because of the depth of acting that I've seen out of the many performances that he's been a part of, right? But I mean, his technical skill is obviously off the chart too. You develop both, but there are some directors that are getting their start maybe in TV, or
mm,
maybe it's a big budget, like a Game of Thrones or something like that,
mm,
where you come to set and you've kind of been cast, and there's just so much in the apparatus of the production that you kind of actually need a technical director. So
mm,
it's not that one is better than the other. It's that, some directors just really are more technical centric, and others are, more actor centric. And some obviously have both. But,
mm,
there are good things about technical directors. I mean, when you think about these big budget, films and TV shows, like my wife and I are into Paradise right now. I mean, like, what an amazing world that's created. Well, you need somebody that's technically savvy to pull
mm,
off all of those major shots and all of this big atmosphere that you're trying to showcase. So neither is better than the other, but like when you are a collaborator, I feel like you come to set as an actor and you just kind of know kind of what the relationship's going to look like for what it is. It's not better or worse. It's because sometimes there's a technical director, you show up on set, they believe that you've done the work, they've already cast you, they know what the scene is going to look like, but maybe they don't need to do that, like example that you just said, or the example that I said, you don't need like that articulation. It's just kind of go time. it's
mm,
it's it's knowing what to expect. And I talk to actors about that all the time. I mean, there are actors that come to set and they're like, oh yeah, no, I'm in this world and I was cast to do this. And there isn't as much room for a dialogue. There maybe isn't as much space for dialogue, and that comes from the production too. I mean, I look at somewhere in Montana, I was there for 6.5 weeks. There was a lot of space. There was a lot of space for me to have these deep conversations with Graham McTavish or Michelle Hurd, to develop these scenes and to kind of really grow these moments together and nurture them. That way, when it was the day of shooting that scene, we really felt like we were in sync with each other. There are some productions where you're a guest star, you're showing up, it's your job to execute. They're not going to
mm,
get those deep conversations with one of the leads of the TV show, and that's okay. It's a different type of job, and you have to be malleable as an actor. Like, you have to be able to say, okay, this is a guest star, this is a commercial shoot, this is a feature film, okay. And listen, as you could probably hear from me, I mean, my feature film, like, I love the space,
mm,
because that's really where I feel like my artistic juices flow. I love, those moments where you get to, get breakfast with Graham and talk over a scene. I love it when you can have a conversation with the great Michelle Hurd and watch the sunset and just talk about life. I mean, it's about connection, but every project is a little bit different. So again, you just kind of have to be able to go with the flow and to be a piece of the puzzle and to, again, serve the material and the greater good of the project.
Now, when a director, Matt, is also the writer, like a Tarantino or the Coen brothers, or I don't know, Spike Lee for that matter, when they're the actual writer, can they be too close to the material? Is there such a thing?
Not in my experience. In my experience, I think it's just a beautiful thing. And I'm trying to get my wife to direct as well. So we're kind
Mm,
of in that phase right now in our production company where and actually it's actually great because she's got a short film that's through Project Involve, which is Film Independent, the Spirit Awards. She actually just went to it a couple months ago, and the director is also a writer. She is a writer. I want her to get into directing, but I do think that there's something magical about kind of joining the two worlds and seeing
Hmm.
if it's a fit for you. Because when you're writing it, I mean that essentially is the pre-production phase. Like you have an idea, you have the visualization of the characters, you have visualization of the world that you're creating, and I think you have a very strong um, ability to adapt that when you get to the production phase. And I found that working with Brandon Smith because
Hmm.
he knew what he wanted, and there would be times where, honest to God, for better or worse, like I would resist that because he would see something in maybe my second take that he would be like, all right, we got it. Are we clear? Meaning, like, the
Hmm.
sound's good, the
Hmm.
lighting's good. And I would be like, but we should try it again. We should try it again. He's like, no, I got what I wanted. And that is really hard as an actor because you have to understand. And he understood it. I mean, we've got such a great working relationship where, sometimes, Joey, you're working on these scenes for a year
Wow.
and a half, 2 years. So to get to the day and to have your director kind of like, on your second take, just be like, you got it, and I'm like, but, you know what I mean? Like the actor
Mm.
part of you is like, God, I want to give more. I want to do more. I want to leave it all on the table. Like like the actor is like the ultimate, like, guy on the sideline that just wants to get into the game. You know what I mean? Like we are like ready to go. We're ready for battle at all times, sort of, so to speak. And I know so many actors like that. Like it's the love of storytelling. And I think that like for us, like that collaborative art, it speaks to that intimacy between the actor and the director, because Brandon already told me a couple months ago that he's writing my next part,
Hmm.
and that shows that not only was I a good actor, Joey, I was a good collaborator. And
Hmm.
that really honestly is the highest, like, honor I feel like you can get as an actor, is to show like, listen, like, you cast me, I showed you, I will go there. I will do all the work that's necessary. I mean, I'm a method actor. I lost 25 pounds for the role because I
Yeah.
felt like, it was the body of the character. Fabian forgot to miss meals. He was hyper, at the beginning. Like, and so I did everything that I needed to get ready for the moment and to serve again his material. And I think because, of the month and a half that we spent together, I showed up on set. I shadowed him as a director because my character is a director. So I did literally everything that I could to be locked in,
Hmm.
for him, really, for him for the most part, because again, this is his story, and for indies specifically, I mean, there is just such an amount of sacrifice that goes into indie films because you don't have these big budgets. I mean, you see directors and producers all the time, like taking out a loan, selling a car. There's a documentary that my friend Deb Smith is doing right now that's called "Sell Your House," and it's about these filmmakers literally selling their house to make a film.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's just an amazing amount of sacrifice, and when you see that as not just an actor, Joey, but like a person, you're
Hmm.
like, okay, I got to bring it, because again, this is somebody that sacrificed everything to bring this story into. And so when you get to the point and you're on set and you're just, getting those short little bits, hey, let's try this, or
Hmm.
I want to bring this around here, why don't you block it? I think if you took a little bit longer and just take that moment, look out over the ranch or whatever it is, it's like you already know what that moment means to the director and the writer, because there's such a correlation there. And because you've had those conversations, because you've had that time to develop the character, I just know what that means. Like, I know what that means in that moment. I know what he wants. I know what he visualizes because we've spent the time really developing the relationship. And that's where the magic happens. That's when you really do. You start to play on set, and then you're around great actors, that have also done the work. And I really do. I think that this film specifically, it was a family. We all knew very early on this was a story that was bigger than all of us, and we were going to tell it. and we were going to tell it proudly. But I really do. I give all the credit in the world to Brandon Smith, Eden Matson, our producer, Joe Borden, our producer, because they gave us the ecosystem and the space to make that possible.
But Matt, why would you want to be an actor, man? I mean, you got to go to auditions. It's so inconsistent. You don't know where the next job is coming from. You got to lose 25 pounds for a role. I mean, it's a tough life. And it's famous. Hollywood is famous for just, spitting actors out and not going back. It's tough, man. You must love it that much.
You have to, and so insightful, because there's no clear path, is what I say.
Yeah.
And I think you learn how to develop your mindset over time, as an actor in New York City. Right in my college years, I mean, I'd get an agent. I felt like I needed to like impress them with like my
Mm,
auditions and stuff like that.
mm.
Now, I mean, you can see I'm laughing because I think that's so silly, so stupid that like, that's a mindset that a lot of young actors are that you kind of have to impress other people. No, it's about your work. It's about your craft. It's about your journey. You have to kind of remember in this practice, the journey is the destination. You have to take moments in your life to appreciate what you've done, the sacrifices that you've made to continue the dream. I mean, Joey, I was closing down bars,
Yeah.
working 6 bar shifts a week in New York City till 4 or 5 a.m. That means you're getting home at
Yeah.
6:30. Sometimes, you grab breakfast and you go to your 9:30 audition. Like that was me.
Amazing.
And again, that was a time in my life where even if I made $600-700 in the bar, like I was putting it right back into my career. I had
Hmm.
an audition coach. I was working with the great Michael Levine, on audition technique. I was working with Ron Shetler at Shetler Studios, who's one of the most world renowned voice teachers. I worked with Terry Schreiber, who is just a grandfather of acting teachers and lover of actors, and just the safest space ever created for actors is right there in that room on 26th Street, because he really did. He wanted you to find your way. And he did. He taught you all the tools necessary to give you a path forward as a creative, and to find your creative process within that. So yeah, I mean, like you actually take pride in honoring the sacrifices that you've made along the way. And to speak to your point about auditions, you find a way
Mm.
to evolve in that process too. I mean, if you talk to me on your podcast 10 years ago, I might be like, oh, Joey, like I gotta book this, or my agent's gonna drop me. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Like, which again sounds so trivial, and again I'm
Mm.
laughing because it's so silly that was my mindset at this point. But as you're talking to me right now, I know how hard my manager and my agents are working for me right now. I know all the things that are happening in the industry. I stay informed. LA is down 38% in production right now.
Yes.
It's tougher than it's ever been with AI and contracts. We had 4 strikes last year, Joey. That's never happened. I mean, it's just there's a lot at stake right now, and not just for me and my career. This is what I always tell people, but really for the art of storytelling, and what is
Mm.
more powerful and riveting and important in my mind than art and storytelling. We're all storytellers, whether you're doing it for a living or not. So I really look at it from the greater good. And to go back to your original question, why to be an actor? Well,
Yeah.
it was born inside me. I felt like my best contribution to this life and to this world as an early, aged kid, growing up in the theaters of rural Virginia, is to leave behind a couple good stories, because I saw as a kid how they impacted me. And I felt like it was, something that I could leave this world, was to leave behind a couple impactful stories like Somewhere in Montana. And so those are the things that drive you. And so when you get those auditions, you take that audition and you look at that like it's already a win. You got an opportunity to act today. You got an opportunity to do your job. I love, how Tom Hanks put it. He do the work, like essentially learn the lines, show up on time, and make some good choices. And that's
Hmm.
what you do as an auditioner,
Hmm.
right? Because again, it's inorganic. You're in front of a blue wall. You're not fully in the world of the story quite yet. You don't have as much time to develop the character. We understand that, but you still get to make choices. You still get to act. You still get the joy of bringing yourself to it. And when you see vets like Michelle Hurd and you have those conversations, I mean, she still gets so excited every time she gets an audition. Ooh, and she talks with her
Oh,
hands like an Italian too. So she became like a big sister to me. Oh, every
she's
time I
great.
get an audition, she's so great. But it's
Yeah.
it's still that childlike joy that you find in the love of it. And it's like you can't see it any other way. You can't see not doing it. Like that would be the greatest pain in your life, is to get that taken away from you, because
Hmm.
you just love what stories can do to people, and the greater good of it, and making people in touch with their emotions and feeling. And again, I think that is vital right now, especially with technology, and how technology is kind of dividing us, and social media kind of
Hmm.
creates like divisiveness. It's like the community of sitting together in space and experiencing a story, and feeling something. That is why you become an actor.
Yeah, Michelle's great, by the way. I enjoyed her in Picard most recently. So, what are the characteristics, Matt, of a great script? How do you know when it's a great script?
It says something, it means something, it does something. It really um it leans in on something that hasn't been told. It leans in on a lot of times, like things that are topical. Somewhere in Montana, Graham and I have a 10-page scene that's just the two of us. Very rarely done in modern cinema, where you have two
Hmm.
characters in space having a conversation, man to man, alpha to alpha. It's a conversation of two guys trying to figure out how to have mutual respect for each other, even though we are two uniquely different people. Keep in mind, Brandon Smith wrote this big story. He wrote a story of two alpha men that are opposite ends of the spectrum,
Hmm.
but he forces them into a scenario where they uniquely need each other. And in
Hmm.
my life, I mean, respect is the highest form of love that you can give another human being. And I really do. I feel like he writes it so deeply, because what he does, and it's very rare also, is that he writes both of the lead characters, the central characters, as the protagonists and antagonists of the same story.
Hmm.
And how normal is that, really, of all of us, is that we are good people. Most of us, like, we're trying to do the right thing, but we antagonize each other, and sometimes we don't even know why. And I do think that social media does breed that, because you're not looking at somebody's face, you're not looking into their eyes. And so this scene, to me, was, in a nutshell, why I truly fell in love with this story,
Hmm.
why I truly fell in love with this script. To your question, it's those types of films, it's those types of stories that have always grabbed me, because they're saying something big, and I indulge in them as much as possible, because it's my job. And I appreciate art, I appreciate great storytelling. And I think that that's something that really goes to my practice and my evolution. Almost to your last question, is that at this point in my life, like, with Somewhere in Montana, I really, really did. I read the script 3 times before I even put myself on tape.
Wow.
I went down with a couple friends. Again, for auditions, you can shoot the thing 30 times, pick 17, and send it off. And I took one take of that scene. And
Hmm.
my friend literally just looked at me, and he was like, and I was like, what does that mean? He was like, I feel like you've got such a clear take on this character and what you want to do with it. You could do it 20, 30, 50 more times, and you would just be losing those instincts that you
Hmm.
had in that first take. If it was me, I'd send it off and see what happens. And so again, you align with people that like understand your creative journey. And then when you get to that producer session and you're talking with Eden, Mattson, the producer, and Brandon Smith, the director, you're literally looking at it from this perspective of curiosity. and what would it look like if we were matched together and you brought me onto this production. And I think just that curiosity and that need to say, hey, like, I'm in it, because again, a lot of acting sometimes is fitting the person to the production as much as the actor to the character. And
Hmm.
so, I think they realized for me that, like, I was all in.
Hmm.
And this was something that resonated with me to a deep level. I mean, again, Fabian is the first character that I've ever fallen in love with. It was so easy to go a method approach because there was so much alignment between the two of us, like in many facets of how we feel about things, about how we feel about storytelling, how we feel about legacy, and how impactful it is to really, in this short time in your life, like, lean in on those moments where you can make an impact to others through your legacy. And I feel like the conversation that I had with the two of them that day, I mean, I think we only ran the screen maybe once or twice. It was
Wow.
more about the, like, what I was bringing, and the energy I was bringing, and the commitment to the project. And so it really does almost correlate with all of your great questions at this
Hmm.
point. Like, that's where those, intimate relationships are created with the director and the writer. Is like, you see that actor in front of you and you see their commitment. And I always say this too. I mean, like, I feel like I'm in the best place in my life as a creative artist, because, like, I just really want to, again, be part of collaborating. Like, whatever you need, like, I'm there for you. And you become a beacon of light when you do that. You become more attractive to other creatives and people that are, maybe risking everything to make an indie film, because you're in. You show it. You can sense it. I mean, even talking to me, you can sense that, like, I'm all in, right?
Hmm.
And so I think when you do that, people align with that. And I think if you keep doing that, to all the young actors out there, like, the path will get carved out for you, believe it.
You mentioned Matt talking, doing that in one take. I think of the song Christina Aguilera has a beautiful song called "Beautiful," and she did it the first time she did it. She went through it, and the writer said, "Okay, don't ever do that again." She goes, "No, no, I want to keep doing it." She goes, "No, you'll never be as vulnerable as you just were." So that song was done in one take, and sometimes it's all it's needed. What kind of scripts do you turn down?
I don't really turn down scripts unless
Hmm.
I feel like it's gratuitous to the point where I don't have any alignment to the character, or I don't understand why the story needs to be told,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. It's very rare. It's very rare. I'll give you an example. I got a scene once that, or timeout, or the project doesn't make sense for where I'm at in my life, like a
Hmm.
like a cruise ship or something like that. At this point, being away from my family, being away from auditioning, being
Hmm.
away
Hmm.
from a 6-month contract, like, if the contract doesn't align with where I'm at in my life. So that would be one. The alignment in story or character, again, you have to realize, like, you are putting yourself out there in a character, and it will essentially live on forever. Depending on the success of it, like, it's available, right? I got an audition from a manager once where it was a very gratuitous rape scene, and
Hmm.
it was essentially like, just eh, again, it was me and 3 other guys. The scene was very harsh, dirty, like, just, again, something that Matt didn't align with for the scene. And again, it was only a line or two. So it wasn't like the character had any redemptive qualities. It was
So
essentially like, a quick moment and a gross line, right? That would just exist. And the project was, maybe like an indie level, not a bad project. And I did my homework, Joey. I read the script. I looked at the different characters. I looked at the dynamic. I looked at what the story. Again, most of it without me because I was just going to be in that one scene with that one line,
Hmm.
did and said. And I didn't align with it. I
Hmm.
didn't want to be associated with it. I didn't want to be connected with it. It's so rare. I'm bringing it up with you because we're going there today. We're a
Yeah.
couple paisans, right? We're just
Sure.
we're going there. But like, yeah, I haven't brought that up in a long time. But it was just a moment where I was like, okay, it felt like artistically and humanely, me as a person felt like I was crossing a line and I didn't want to. Like it didn't align with me, where Fabian and I, for example, we don't have the same sexuality. He's gay, I'm straight.
Hmm.
I feel such alignment with Fabian because of who he is and the way that Brandon wrote Fabian. He's an alpha. He's a man. He's a man,
Hmm.
and so much of that was built into so many of the relationships that I've had in my life with
Hmm.
men, that might not be, straight like I am. They might be gay, they might be bi, it doesn't matter. They're men. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to really, and it was a thing that I struggled with, right? A straight guy playing a gay man, but it really, really did feel like um not a challenge because he was just a man. He was
Hmm.
somebody that Brandon wrote it in a way that was sort of a throwaway, which I really liked. He didn't dive deep into like the fact that there was like this, clash between heterosexuality and homosexuality. He didn't write it. He just made one character, right wing, straight, and he made the other character liberal and gay, just to
Hmm.
create that unknown or that
Tension.
known tension, that
Yeah.
dissonance that you feel in the scene. But so much of Fabian, in terms of him as a human being and what he stood for, in going down with his own ship, in making sure that people on his set felt safe, that he believed that big stories needed to be told, that he could change the world, that he only had so much time in doing it, is very much in alignment with who I am. So I didn't have to go far,
Hmm.
and I think that was something that really spoke to me in this script, and I really do. I can't count on my hand how many times I haven't put something on tape. Again, if I'm putting something on tape, for me, it means that I'm interested. If you
Hmm.
are the casting director, if you are the director, if you're the producer, and you send me an audition, if I send you something back, that is an invitation where, like, in my mind and my heart, I'm in. I'm interested. You know what I mean? And here's what I can do with it, Joey. Like this is what you'll get from me, and we can workshop it. I'm very. I've been told this by many different people that I'm very coachable, and I think
Hmm.
it kind of goes back to sports too, and being a fourth degree martial artist and
Yeah.
having a dad as a sensei. Like I love direction. Like it's fun for me to take direction and run with it. Um, but if it's a project that again doesn't align with my life and it doesn't align with my morals or values as Matt mostly, then I will humbly just not take the audition and respectfully thank whoever's brought me in for that audition because they still gave me the opportunity, and I'm grateful for really any opportunity. But again, I would say a handful. It doesn't happen often, but it usually just comes with moral alignment.
How about scripts, Matt, that are a bit like I think of Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Whereas there's not a true script; it's very loose, and you have to be a certain kind of actor to not know exactly what your lines are.
That's a great question. I think that really it comes down to that camaraderie on set. I
Hmm.
mean, Larry David is a mastermind of that, and I think when you're playing with people that have that skill set, a lot of times, like if you've been brought into that world again, a lot of these um creators that are actors, that are producers, that really kind of are fully functioning entities in the creative space like he is, I think that they know what they need and they know what they want. They have pretty much the clearest perspective that you can have on anybody showing up on set. They don't miss, I'll say. And so if you're showing up on a set like his, you're there for a reason.
Mm.
And there's something that he saw in you that aligns with his creative vision, and he knows his creative vision
Yeah.
better than anybody else. So you have to kind of run with that sometimes. I mean, there is that imposter syndrome, Joey. I got to be honest. Like
Mm.
you can show up and sometimes it'll hit you hard. I'll be completely honest because we're going there today. I mean, when I showed up, to somewhere in Montana, it's the first time like I've carried the weight of a lead role opposite some really great actors for the first time. And I think until I met seasoned pro actors like Graham, Michelle, Michael Monks, um, I think until I met them and started to know them as people and started to understand the story, and you kind of get the first scene out of the way. And Brandon, I mean, again, he crafted the schedule really well. He gave us that space to like get to know each other. He kind of backed off of the really heavy scenes until later on.
Mm.
He designed a really perfect schedule, I got to be honest. And I think because of all of that, like that quickly melted away, like
Hmm.
quickly. Once I started to know these actors and to know the crew and to know everybody on set. Again, the cast and crew for this one were interchangeable. We really, really did align in all ways, and we knew really early on like this was a really important story. So I think that that's a big part of it. But yeah, I think you have to really trust the creative process. I think you have to trust the people that are behind the scenes that create the ecosystem. And if you're showing up to set with somebody great like Larry David, you're there for a reason, and it's time to go to work.
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind the scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today. You got your pilot's license at 16. You went VFR, which is visual flight rules. Then you went right over to IFR. Very, very young. I have my VFR. I never went to IFR. What is being a pilot? Has it helped you? I mean, it's checklists. It's making sure everything's done. You got to stay ahead of the plane. I mean, has that helped you in your profession, Matt?
Absolutely. I think it really gave me something at an early age that was completely opposite of art. It was
It was
very right
science.
brain to left brain.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I think for me, I jokingly say it was my hardest college course because it really,
Mm.
and it was before I was even in college. I mean, I soloed at 14. I got my VFR right at 16, like you said, and then I quickly just really got into it. I think I felt really passionate about it because it was so different. And it was at a time in my life where, I could fly, and I could fly cheap. I was, in rural Virginia. I could get a Cessna 152 for like $75 an hour, Joey. I mean, just
Wet.
crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because I had a friend that like basically would rent out his planes to me and say, hey, go gas up in Maryland and I'll give you the flight time for free. And like, it's
Nice.
just kind of one of those good situations that you don't
Ah.
always get. And, it gave my dad the opportunity to, fund it and to see if it was something that I wanted to pursue, because I really was passionate about it. The first time I got my VFR on top clearance, and I was flying above the clouds, and I was going, I think, just a touchdown at like BWI,
Really?
and you're around these really big planes, and like you're just kind of like a little Cessna 172. I flew
Yeah, that's
Aztecs
Bravo
too.
airspace. Yeah,
Oh, it
that's
was
yeah.
crazy. It was
Yeah.
nuts. Like it was. I got another one for you. I flew down to Richmond, and they've got a lot of military activity once, and I like literally took off, and I like feel like I'm standing still, Joey, like, taking off, like just, puttering up blah, blah, blah,
Sure.
blah, in my 172. And I see this object like down on like my right, and it's just like kind of floating towards me. And I'm like, am I seeing things? Is vertigo happening? Like what's
Yes.
going on, right? And like all of a sudden this stealth fighter like just like floats
Whoa.
past me. And I can't even say
Whoa.
fly. I have to say floating, because it literally just was like
Mm,
this orb that just grew, and then it
mm,
just like floated past me, and I was like, "Oh, wow." So it
uh,
was like moments like that really just kind of, made me very passionate about it, in the way that I'm passionate about acting. Like I felt very passionate about flying growing up. Like it really was a calming space to be up, in the clouds by myself. And I felt like maybe I was going to pursue it. I was very close to getting my multi engine. Again, that same friend had a multi
mm,
engine plane that he allowed me to again gas up. So I think I got like 25 hours in a multi-engine. And I was really pursuing the commercial license to see if I could make some money. There were a lot of people that were doing like, air ambulance, things like that, and obviously coaching as well to get extra flight hours to get to the point where you would get your jet rating.
hmm,
This as a pilot, obviously,
yeah.
it's just, I was on the precipice of this moment in time, but I was getting to be, 18. I was getting to be like at that moment where I had to kind of decide my path. And my
Mm,
path was like, do I essentially stay in Virginia, maybe pursue being a pilot, very right brain, passionate about it, but more right brain, or do I pursue this love that I've had my entire life in acting, very left brain? And where do I feel like I can make a bigger impact as Matt? And it was this very major crossroads, because I really did at that time, Joey, I love both. Like I really
hmm,
did love both for different reasons. And it was that moment where I just kind of had to kind of, have that reckoning. And the path for me, it was very clear that I was going to go to New York City. My grandma, had a place for me to live. I got to move back home essentially on 79th and Broadway. My aunt was moving out at that time. So grandma was going to be alone. And I could basically have a home to come to in
wow.
a big city and really take full advantage of it. I mean, the fact that I was able to make money in the bars and put it right back into my career, it's because of grandma.
Hmm,
It's because she gave me the ability to have, a place that I wasn't paying exorbitant amounts of rent for. So I was able to take the money and spend it right back on the things that would help me grow as an artist. And again, the path became clear to me. I feel like I would love to get back into flying, but I remember going into New York, looking up like Teterboro, like the
yeah.
cheaper of the cheap, like,
Yes.
couple airports out in Long Island to see if it was possible. And I got to be honest, Joey, like the flight packages were about 4 to 5 times more, and
Yes.
I was just like,
Yes.
right now this is where I got to put my money into my art, into my craft, and
Mm.
go in all in on that. But yeah, no, it's a passion of mine. It's something that I would love to rediscover. But I definitely think you're very astute in asking that. I think it definitely created a counterweight in a way to something that I could be passionate about that was so different than acting. And again, those moments in life, like where I was, flying above the clouds, or
Mm.
flying between three states at the same time, was a really special time in my life.
Yeah, I got mine in Meriden, Connecticut, about 100 miles north of there. But yeah, they call that the
Okay.
Trinity,
Yep.
Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia. I mean, it's
Hmm.
very busy airspace. You mentioned your fourth degree black belt. Uh, should everybody kind of dip their toe in the martial arts? It's just, it's so good for you.
Yes, I think martial arts are are extraordinary. And obviously, you're speaking to a karate kid here. I mean, I grew
Right.
up with my dad, who is an eighth degree black belt, who actually has one of the longest standing dojos in the same place in the country, the
Wow.
Front Royal Karate Club in Front Royal, Virginia. And he's been doing it his whole life. And for me, here is the main thing that I'll say in to your question. Find, a dojo,
Mm,
find a martial arts environment that is about the self practice,
mm,
and that is important. Don't find one that is about trophies. Don't find one where
mm,
kids are sparring each other at 7, 8, 9 years old. You don't need that.
mm.
Your trophy is your belt. Get into the practice of finding your own dynamic movement. Find the practice. I mean, Okinawan Shorin-ryu is what my dad fell in love with. And when I went over to Okinawa with my dad, and we spent over 2 weeks there, and we just got to really immerse ourselves in the culture. I mean, these are farmers. Okinawans are some of the longest living people in the world.
Wow.
They are extraordinary. They are just really like in sync with their own humanity.
Hmm.
You want to find a martial arts practice that speaks to that. You want to find something that, in my dad's words, isn't American sport karate.
Mm,
Isn't based on, again, accolades.
mm,
There's no accolades in karate. Like, it's a self practice. It's very
hmm,
much like the way that a lot of actors see acting. And I understand that there are awards, and I
mm,
understand that
mm.
acting is very outward facing. But hand to God, Joey, I mean, most actors get into this for the storytelling,
Wow.
and I feel like it's the same thing for martial artists. You should get into it for the ability to be on the dojo deck. And I go back to Virginia and I do this. I'll open up the dojo, the dojo, and I'll go in there and nobody will be in there, and I'll just do katas for an hour and a half by
Hmm.
myself with nobody looking, with no audience, because again, it's something that centers me, it grounds me. And I do it, even as an artist. I tell people all the time, if you're an artist and you're passionate about it and you're going after it day in, day out, you're going to burn yourself out. So you got to
Mm.
find other things that you love. And for me, I go to a park. I do karate. I will indulge in Sunday football. It's like a religion to me. Just
Hmm.
to get out of to enjoy something and to be passionate about something else is a way to sustain the thing that
Yeah.
you're passionate for in life. It creates a balance in your life. So yeah, karate for me. Growing up in the dojo, growing up with my dad, and actually just went for my fourth degree black belt last year on May the 4th, on Star Wars Day. My dad,
Mm.
actually, his birthday is May 3rd. So
Hmm.
I got to spend his birthday with them. And then the day after, go for my fourth degree black belt. It was just tremendous. It was really great. And what's really vital to me in this practice is the family that I've created in it.
Mm.
And a dojo can really bring some incredible people together. I mean, we have everything from pastors to teachers to jail guards to U.S. Marshals and bodyguards. I have a couple people in the dojo that I consider uncles to me. John Musser, who was a Hollywood bodyguard for a while, then a U.S. Marshal. I call them uncles. Uncle Art Daniels. Like
Mm.
he's a jail guard, and he's just always been there for me. And these are people in my life that, like, I know if I was ever in a bind, like, they would be there for me. So part of it for me in going back for my fourth degree black belt was just about being around my family again,
Hmm.
being around those people and bringing them all together in a weird way, kind of like a wedding, because again, I don't get to see these people that often. But I knew that if I, went for fourth degree black belt as Sensei's son, everybody would want to show up,
Mm.
and they'd want to reconnect with me because I don't get to see them that often. I'm on the different coast. But it was a really special night. It was one that meant a lot to me. It was a very full circle moment. And again, I told my dad, and I think this was something that really got to the evolution, and he nodded. He really appreciated it. I said, Dad, I feel like in many ways, like, I've always enjoyed karate. It's something that has always been a self practice. I love it. But, if I'm being honest, sometimes I felt like, going for a belt, like I was doing it, for you, to please
Mm.
you, because of the relationship that we had. I said, I'm going for my fourth degree black belt this time. I'm doing it for me.
Mm.
And he really appreciated that, because that showed kind of the evolution of me really enjoying the self practice for myself. And that's what a good acting teacher does. That's what a good sensei does. So, in answer to your question, martial arts are beautiful, but definitely find one that has a sensei like my dad, that brings people together, that appreciates the art part of the martial art, and
Mm.
really can dive deep on how to really make you learn and grow from it.
Yeah, to have these other interests, Matt, is very important because it avoids burnout.
Yeah.
Has there been anything in the last month or so, Matt, that you changed your mind on?
Meaning what?
Anything?
Um, no, not really. I mean, I feel like I've always been a type of person that always tries to stay open
Hmm.
to where the path is going to take me. So I find myself not changing my mind, but adapting, and
Hmm.
finding a way to move forward, because to your point earlier, like, nobody's saying that this career path is easy, because it's not. There's not that typical thing of, like, I've got a couple cousins that are into sports. They were both goalies, right? They still are goalies, but when they were going that professional route, they had stats to go by. And I always said, like, oh, I would love stats. There's no stats in acting, you know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
like, they knew what they needed to do to achieve the next level. Very much like in some businesses, right? Kind of what you need to do to get that raise, or to get that promotion. That doesn't exist in art. So at least for the most part, maybe on the executive level, but not on the creative level, we'll say. So for me, it really it does becomes a part of my, like, creative process, to just stay open, and to try as much as possible to let that dictate where I'm going to go next. And again, that's kind of why I moved to LA. To go back to mentors and teachers, since we've been talking a lot about that today.
Hmm.
Terry Schreiber, again, I say he's a grandfather to me. I really do mean it, because of who he is,
Hmm.
because of what he's about. And there was a moment where he brought me into his office, and it was a 30-minute conversation that changed my life, Joey. He literally,
Really?
saw that I was really down on myself. I was really close for a lot of Broadway shows, like literally runner up, like, and that hurts a little bit more than
Hmm.
if you're going in and you're just not right for something, but you felt like you had a good audition and maybe you'll get brought back in. I,
Hmm.
I could taste it so many times. And this was for Frankie Valli and Jersey Boys,
Oh wow.
Avenue Q, Wicked, Fiero. It was a lot of Broadway shows, really, really close, and just coming up a little bit short.
Hmm.
And I remember that moment where he just kind of, you got a couple minutes to talk, hey, and that 30-minute conversation, he just, he said, like, I can see you getting down on yourself,
Hmm.
and I want you to know that I see you as an actor, an artist in my class, and I see the work that you put into it, and I see the drive that you put into it, and I see your ability to really have it be this self practice. And we go back to karate for that, right? Like, just kind of the way it's been indoctrinated. It's that, like, I have this innate sense of humility, because I feel like I'm never going to get it perfect, but damn, I'm going to try. I'm going to give myself the tools, and I'm going to surround myself with the mentors and the people that can help me grow. That way, when there is that break in the path, I will just have, like, an instinct on which path is the right one to take for my life and my dreams and my goals. And he said, in that 30-minute meeting, maybe you should give LA a shot.
Hmm.
Maybe I see your work. I see that it could correlate well to a film and TV medium. Keep in mind, this is a guy that I would be leaving his class, right? I would be going across the country. I wouldn't be in New York anymore. He's telling me this out of pure love of me.
Hmm.
And I think that is such an extraordinary thing that made me even love him more as a
Mm.
mentor in my life, because he was basically saying, "Stretch your wings. You know, New York is going to be here. I'll be here. Um, but give it a shot." Unbeknownst to him, literally right next door in his studio, he had a lot of different classes. I was taking a film and TV class. And I was taking it from the great Peter and Diane Miner. Peter was the director of One Life to Live for about a decade, and Joey, I met a girl there, and I met
Wow.
a girl. We were paired together in a breakup scene from Say Anything, the John Cusack movie,
Yes.
with the boombox, and
Yeah, no
it's
bug.
it's 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 that really quintessential scene where it's that breakup scene where she, gives him the pen and says, "Promise you'll write," right?
Hmm.
But it's a breakup. It's over at that point, and it was just amazing. Laura wasn't at the first class. She had taken actually that class cycle 2 times before. And I went to Peter at the end and I said, "I'll get together with Elizabeth." He was like, "Oh, no, no, your scene partner's not Elizabeth. Laura's your scene partner. She just wasn't here today." And get together with her, run the scene, da 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 da. And so I had her over to my apartment. I'm digging through the scene. I noticed the call sheet, and in that moment, I really didn't like. I had thought about it briefly, but it hadn't really resonated with me. That like she had a 5-4 area code, and I was like, "Where are you from in Virginia?" Because I have a 5-4 area code, and she looked at me and she said, "Front Royal," and I said, "Excuse me," and she said, "Front Royal, Virginia. Have you heard of it?" And I looked at her and I said, "I'm from Front Royal." And she was like, "No way." And I was like, "No, seriously. My dad's the karate guy across from the Main Street Cinema, and I know this person, and I used to do theater here, da 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 da." And she was like, "Oh." And I was like, "Well, what about you? What does your family do?" And she said, "My family owns the Apple House, which is a small little quaint country store off the Interstate 66 that only somebody in that area would know." And I kid you not, Joey, I looked at my dresser on 79th and Broadway and I said, "Look at my dresser." There were 3 things with the price tag still on them from the Apple House.
Hmm.
And it was in that moment where, again, in Terry Schreiber's studio, this is how we came together. I looked at Laura and I said, "Well, we've already gotten the breakup out of the way. You ready to go out on a date?"
Wow.
And that's when we started dating. And honestly, that was a big part of my the strength that I needed to pursue LA, because I had met Laura and I could, make that journey across the country with someone, not by myself. I felt like that was really big for me because, again, I'm a grandma's boy, and it was one of the most painful decisions I've ever had to make in my life was
Hmm.
leaving my grandma. And I only did it for like 2 or 3 months. Like we weren't sure. We took a kind of kumbaya trip. We packed up her place on 87th in Amsterdam. We packed up my stuff, a little bit of it at least, on 79th and Broadway. We went back to Virginia. We unpacked, we repacked. We got a car. We drove across the country. We hit a bunch of destinations, including Sedona, which is beautiful. A place that has vortexes and is for like energy and spirituality, and the Grand Canyon. And we really just kind of tried to make it like a trip of really finding where we were going to land, and searching for answers and being open again to the path and where it was going to take us. At that point, we had one of Laura's friends that had a grandfather that lived in the valley that literally looked and acted like Eli Wallach,
Hmm.
literally a beautiful Jewish man from Brooklyn. He would make us matzo ball soup. He was giving us rent for like $500 a month because I think he just wanted someone around. So Laura and I basically took, a room in his house, and we just really, I think it filled a gap for me at that point of missing my grandmother because I had a grandfather around, a grandfather figure. And we just really did. We spent the next few months there, and it was painful. I mean, when I left grandma, I took all the money that I saved from the bars and all the hard work, and I gave her a, a third of it, just to make sure that she was going to be okay. And sure, we were still coming back, for Thanksgiving and Christmas and this and that, but we were pretty broke. I mean,
Hmm.
we didn't have a job. I was surviving in any way I can. Again, part of the pride I take in my creative journey is the fact that, I was the top task rabbit in LA for a year and a half.
Really?
Which is, yeah, it's just like cleaning people's, houses, digging, doing gardening work in their backyard, painting their bookshelves, organizing their closets. Like, it was all in service of, just because, again, I don't have any connections. Like,
Hmm.
I'm just a kid from Virginia that took what I had, which was, to get to New York, to learn from the best, and then to do what I needed to do to, again, keep the dream alive. And I think because I had Laura in my life at that point, and because I had, that powerful conversation from Terry, we moved across the country. We spent about 3 months out here. And at a certain point, 3 months later, we just kind of looked at each other, and we just kind of both knew. And I said the question. I remember looking at her and I said, "This is home now, isn't it?"
Hmm.
And Laura looked at me and she said, "Yeah, this is home."
Hmm.
And that's where we really did. We felt like we landed in a place that made sense. We landed in a place that we really loved. And as hard and painful as that was, you hope that, your family can understand that this is a path that doesn't have a clear path, and sometimes you just have to rely on your instincts. And first and foremost, those are kind of the ones that I've always, leaned into. And I think that's kind of a part of your insightful your question, which is a great, conversation starter, is just being open to where the path is going to take you, and relying on your instinct, as much as possible. Because I think if you do that, and you're open to the signs, and you look for the energy, and again, we're all on this crazy journey called life, I think you'll find your way.
Hmm. Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. So Matt, I'm in the tech industry. I started my business in the 90s and I was working way too hard, working 14, 16-hour days. You're no stranger to this. And putting my health in the back seat. And before you know it, I'm at the doctor's office and she says to me, I'm 340 pounds. And she says, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So scared the life out of me. I can abuse myself all I want, but I have a family now. I have others, and so I'm driving home upset with myself. This is my pie hole. I'm the one who did it. So I spent the next 6 7 months, lost 130 pounds, and you can't look at it as a finishing line. These are lifelong changes you have to make. But when I tell people the story, I could just tell it. What's your secret? What'd you do? And there's no secret. Discipline. That's how I took it off. That's how I live. Willpower, focus, restraint, etc. How does discipline play a role in your life, Matt Drago?
Yeah, that's, again, you're asking all the great questions today, Joey. I think that, what you just said, here's the way that I'll put it. I think it became more of a need than a want.
Hmm.
You needed to lose that weight.
Hmm.
And yet you still had the willpower. You still had to put in the work, but
Hmm.
you had the need. It became less of a want and more of a need.
Hmm.
And I think that is a
Hmm.
a place in my life that I've gotten to with acting, with storytelling. It's a need now. It's
Hmm.
not a want. I need it, and I need it in a way that is something where I feel like it's something that I can leave behind and impact the world with. And I've seen a lot of people, friends of mine, get to a place in their life where they don't want it anymore.
Mm.
And maybe they never really needed it. Maybe it's something that they really loved. They enjoyed it.
Hmm.
It sparked joy in them. But when you have that hunger and that desire to make a change or to sacrifice over and over and over again to make that big change in your life, like it is. It's powerful because you are recommitting to yourself, and you're recommitting to really who you are and who you want to be in the
Mm.
future. You
Mm.
know, acting is my first love. It will forever be my first love. But I think I've learned in the process of Somewhere in Montana that what I really love is I love collaboration.
Hmm.
And I love like just really allowing myself to be open and allowing myself to be open to other creatives, allowing myself to be open to people that I just met, like you, Joey, having a really rich, conversation like we're having right now.
Mm.
These types of moments in my life have become a part of my journey, have become a part of who I am because I don't want people to just know me as an artist, being that, athlete on the field. I want them to know what I'm about off the field,
Mm.
what my creative vision is, where I've had ups and downs. Like I like to bare my soul, for better or worse. And that, in a sense, is what you're doing with your sacrifice that you made when you
Mm.
went into that doctor and he said, you got to do this or you're not going to be able to see your kids graduate. I, like, as Matt, feel the weight of that moment for you. I feel it. Like that moment must have like literally slapped you in the face.
Yeah.
It woke you up and it literally turned something on in you where you like, all right, time to get to work. I got to get to work. Now I got to get to work. And it's interesting that I actually had another close friend of mine, another Italian guy from New York that actually moved down here in Newhall. Same exact thing.
Hmm.
Doctor said the same thing right away, hires a nutritionist, da 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 da. And he's telling me about it. I literally looked at Adam and I was like, I'm not surprised. I know who you are. And I'm having this conversation with you and I've just met you and I can just tell it's who you are. It
Yeah.
was always who you are. Like you have this ability to just be like, I think it's kind of an Italian thing too. It's like,
Maybe.
this isn't good to me. All right, fine. I'll change it. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like hubris sometimes like is a
Mm.
good thing. You know what I mean? It's like taking pride in yourself, taking pride in your family, which obviously is a big part of Italian culture too. But I think that is it's such a parallel I see just in having this conversation with you today
Mm.
is that like that was like your aha moment. My aha moment for the power that I felt in acting, where I felt like this is what I need to do, not for myself, but because it's the way I feel like I can leave behind my greatest impact on the world and something I feel passionate about and something that I feel like can really impact humanity while also putting me in touch with my human psyche and my humanity at the same time is this just absolute gift of acting and
Mm.
and what that means to me is when I was doing dinner theater in Virginia, and it was the first paying gig I ever had, and I was over the moon, just making a little bit of money, while I was in high school. But it wasn't about that. The impact came when there was this woman. I'm playing Little Patrick and Mame. I think I served her table that night. That literally waited out of the stage door when I came out and she looked at me and little Mame is like kind of a mother son kind of dynamic show and she must have been in her 70s and she looked at me and she was like, Matthew, I really wanted to thank you for your performance tonight.
Hmm.
And I didn't say anything. I was kind of caught off guard. Again, I'm 14 or 15 years old at this point. And she looked at me and she said, it really taught me that I need to make a bigger effort to be closer to my son. And it was that in that moment, Joey, where I was like, "Oh, I understand the
Hmm.
power of what we do. The power of connecting people to their good emotions, the power of connecting people to their humanity." We are in a time right now, where we are at a divide with technology. We are at a divide with technology and art. I mean, I say this, but human stories matter. We cannot give up our human voices to our machine. We cannot
Hmm.
give up our stories to a machine. It is important to see real emotions and real tears and real people creating real art. And it sparks such a power in us, and it creates a way for us to connect to each other. And so, it was a moment in time for me where I was like, oh, I don't want to do this.
Hmm.
I need to do this.
Hmm. What motivates you, Matt?
I think what motivates me to my core is really just the power that exists in art, in
Hmm.
storytelling. Um, I think there's also just this innate joy of being around my people, you know, uh, being amongst your tribe in life. Like, again, if you're around people that lift you up and never let you down, you're gonna live a good life.
Hmm.
And I felt the joy in that way back from being in New York City. And again, there were times, Joey, I'd go to Actors Equity. For your listeners, that's the Broadway Union, and they have a place in Midtown where you can go and hang out all day and maybe sing your 16 or 32 bars for Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, or a touring show or a regional show. Um, and just be around your people. It was
Hmm.
a really unique, opportunity to be around your people. And there were faces that I remember seeing at Actors Equity. I mean, I remember seeing Lin-Manuel Miranda. Who knew, then, like,
Hmm.
where his artistic journey was going to take him. I mean, a lot of, star names. Again, this is what's great about theater, because it doesn't really exist in film and TV in the casting process, especially now with technology. But you still go in, you're still around people. And I did it even when I was non-union, meaning that I didn't have a guaranteed time slot to even
Hmm.
audition. There would be days where I'd come home to grandma, and she'd be like, "Did you get to audition?" And I'd be like, "No, but it was a good day."
Hmm.
And she'd be like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "No, it was a good day. I got to have some really great conversations with people." So I think it was that mentality. It's what
Hmm.
drives me is being around creatives, being something that's part of something that's bigger than yourself, leaving behind impactful stories that resonate over time, that can be something that connects people to their own psyche, their own humanity, getting them to feel. We're always better when we are in touch with our emotions, our good
Hmm.
emotions. I always say that. And I think that there is a badge of honor that I wear as an actor, to be an ambassador for that, to be a collaborator and say, what do we need? How do we extract everything out of this story to just get people to understand each other a little bit more? To be grounded in the conversations that we're having. To go back to that 10-page scene with Graham and I, we had that conversation. We wanted it to not feel too precious, to not feel actory at all,
Hmm.
to be two men in the same space just listening to each other. And two uniquely different people that, at the end of the day, would still agree to disagree on
Hmm.
maybe most things. And
Hmm.
it didn't matter, because in that moment we were connecting with each other. And it's those impactful moments that I've seen in art my whole entire life, dating back to The Godfathers, dating back to all the Scorsese films, that literally was that little young, New York Sicilian kid, Italian kid, looking at these films and just being like, I got to do this. This is important. This is a world that I see myself being a part of, and I will continue to sacrifice over and over again, because, again, to be around people that resonate with you, to leave a couple great impactful stories behind, it's just literally nothing better in the world than that.
Well, Matt, I'm so glad we set this up. I love what you do. I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the future with you. I look forward to seeing everything, all the great things that are down the road from you, my friend. If anybody listening, they want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Joey, I mean, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for this wonderful, beautiful, rich conversation. Like I say all the time, I mean, like these conversations become a part of me. They become a part of my journey, and it gives
Mm.
me the opportunity to, showcase myself as a person, not just an actor on a screen or on a stage, but really what I stand for. So thank you for your platform, and thank you for inviting me to be your honored guest today. It means a lot. To follow me, I really stick to the one social media platform. I'm on Instagram at Matt Drago, MattDrago, at Matt Drago. From there, I made it simple. I got a link tree up there. It's got my actor website, mattdrago.com. It's got my production company website, dragonhunterproductions.com. Fun fact, my wife's maiden name is Hunter. So
Ah,
Drago and Hunter makes Dragon Hunter Productions.
look
I
at that.
also put up my IMDb if you want to check out my past and future projects. So just give me a follow there. And like you've seen today, like I share things about my personal and my creative journey, because I think that they're one and the same. So give me a follow there, and you'll be in the know and all that's happening in my life as a creative and as a person.
Very cool. Next time I'm in your geography, we'll get a cup of tea.
Cup of tea, absolutely. I would love that. Honestly, I would always be up. We got a Aroma Cafe.
Very
That's where my
nice.
wife and I have been, or she's been doing a lot of her dates with her crew for her film that she's got coming out. So I would love that, Joey. And again, thank you so much, my friend. I really feel like you're a fast friend already. This has been just really impactful for me. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Be well.
You too, Joey.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.